Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leathercraft, and we're going to have a great time making a top-notch firewood carrier. Now, my decision here, do we go simple? Do we just make a basic rectangle, add 2 straps? Well, we could absolutely go that way, and we'll look at our pattern. Or my other choice, let's go all in. Well, I guess the answer there is obvious. Let's go all in. Maybe a little bit longer video, but this is beautiful, and it is going to carry some serious firewood for years to come. Now, what we're doing, we're going to drop in trunk handles. Super easy to do, comfortable in the hand, very durable. Secondly, if you're new to tooling or want to get a start, we're going to do some white poplar leaves. Very easy to do. They don't have to be perfect, and we're only using 2 tools. Now, on our borders, we're going to do some inverted carving. Technically not carving, more stamping, but it's a cool technique. All right, anything I use in this video, weaverleathercraft.com or check below. We've got links there. Going to take you straight to our website. So let's step over here and look at our pattern. Simple dimensions. Everything's going to fit into place. So let's do this. Start right here on our main body. Widthwise, 14 inches. That's going to easily hold a standard cut of firewood. Lengthwise, 24 inches. That's going to hold, say, one of the bags of firewood that we get at a convenience store or the grocery store. Probably a little bit more. All right, digital pick. We're going to come in from our edge, either side or both sides, 3 1/4 inch. That'll be our center line for our rivets. So on our straps, we're going to come in from our edge 1 inch and then 1 1/4 inch. And we'll see that over here, same spread on our strap. On our center line, we're going to come in 2 inches, put a rivet hole. That's going to be for our billet. Now that's going to connect over here 2 inches in to a sand brown. So there's our basic dimensions. Let's jump over to our straps. So digital pick here on our trunk handle, 21 inches long, and we're going to go 1 1/4 inch wide. That's going to give us a comfortable, durable trunk handle. Now you'll notice we've got chisel lines on both sides. We're going to start those 3 inches in, and again on our holes, same spread. Now with this, we've got another option here. If you don't want to do the trunk handle, you can go with a mystery braid. It's going to look great, be very durable. Same measurements, except we're going to come down to 1 1/8 inch. So therefore, we have 3 bands at 3/8 of an inch. But again, we're going to come in 3 inches. Our holes are going to remain the same. Now on our billet, last step, we're coming in 2 inches, and I've only allotted 6 inches on this. Well, let's bump that up to 8 inches because that makes that just a little too tight. So I'm going to change that and we'll cut accordingly. Okay, now let's step over to our main table, look at some decoration options. I spent 2 days trying to come up with a perfect design for this. You know what I learned? There's about 1 billion perfect designs. So what we're going to do is go with a leaf. Yeah, it's a wood carrier. Makes sense. We're going to use the white poplar leaf. Very easy to tool. Now on our border, love this look. So let's jump over to a digital pick there. We've got a groove line, 1/8 of an inch in. So we're going to double that. So 1/4 inch in from our edge, and we're going to give that 1/2 inch width. We're going to bevel that down, add our backgrounder, and then starting at dead center on our bottom, we're going to drop in our spots at 2 inch increments. Looks great. Love the way that dresses up our edge. Now, without going too far, some options. Inverted tooling, I mentioned that. Did a wood carrier for the president of our company. W, well, makes sense, right? But is that not a gorgeous design? Right here, we could do a simple flourish. Invert that just like our border, and that would match. Do that on both sides of our strap. Love the Mexican basket weave. Problem is, wood's going to catch on that, tear it up. We could always go with an initial, but let's do this. Let's go with our poplar leaf. So we're going to step over to our table and create our design. If you don't feel artistic or creative, here's the big news. We don't have to be to create beautiful designs. First step, let's figure out what area we're going to put our design in. What are our dimensions here? Well, let's take some tracing film, and I'm going to cut flush across the top so I can butt that against the edge of my pattern. Now, let's do this. Let's lay this in, and I'm going to trace my straps and my rivets. Easy enough. So now we know exactly where our design's going to fit. Second step, let's go online. We're going to Google, in this situation, white poplar silhouette. Needless to say, we're going to get a few options. All right, pick one you like. With our copier, we can increase or decrease the size so that, again, this will fit into our design area. Now, with our tracing film, I'm going to lay this in, right on that pattern and simply trace it with a pencil. For the second leaf, I like that overlapping leaf look. Plus it gives it a little bit of a curve. Let's flop our tracing film and drop in what we can see on this leaf. So therefore, creating that design, very easy. Now, when we jump over to our pattern, there's our strap and our handle. All right, that's going to sit there. We can certainly do the same thing over here, but let's do this. Let's flop our design. There we go. Now our leaves are going to work out a little bit. It's a nice detail. Okay, let's step over to our main table, cut some leather. We've got a decision to make on our leather. In fact, I'm still trying to make this decision now. This is our holster leather, pre-dyed veg tan. Love it, no dye required. And it stamps and it tools beautifully. The only problem is, if this is the only weight we have in our shop, we can make a trunk handle with this, but the problem is, in my opinion, that just overpowers the wood carrier. It's huge. So let's do this. Let's go with a veg tan, and we're going to use 2 different weights. So I'm going to reset here. Let's mark and cut. We're going to use our Weaver Select Natural Veg Tan, 8 to 9 ounce. It's going to be a durable wood carrier. But the second big point here, it's a quality leather. It's going to make our tooling look great. And in fact, it's probably going to make my tooling look a little better than I deserve. So let's do this. We're going to mark our main pattern, cut this out, mark our holes. We'll tool this. While this is drying, we'll jump back over, cut the balance of our straps. Now, 2 points when we're cutting. First off, we can use a pin. Absolutely. If you have trouble seeing an awl line, use a pin. We can cut inside the line, but also we're going to bevel, so that will disappear. Also, we don't have to worry about trying to cut through this in one pass. We can make multiple passes, but let's just do our best to keep our blades straight up and down. Good, there we go. We're going to get a good clean cut every time. There we are. Look at that, nice clean cut. All right, let's round our corners, mark for our holes. And our holes are marked. All right, let's step over to our pattern table, case our leather, get ready to do some tooling. We're going to case our leather, but what I want to do is case the entire piece. Even though we're just going to be tooling, say right here, or just our borders. Let's case the entire piece of leather so we don't have watermarks on this once it dries. We've got a consistent chestnut color across our leather. That's what we're looking for. Got a good water content. So let's give this about 15 minutes, let that water wick in nicely. We've got some good dry time. So let's take our pattern. Now I'm going to line this up. We've got our holes. So let's square across the top, line that up with our holes, and that is going to be clean and centered. Now, these are leaves. We don't have to be perfect. If we don't hit every line exactly right, doesn't matter. They're leaves. So let's trace this in with our pencil. Well, that looks good. We can easily see that. Now for our other side, and I always forget to do this, or I try not to, let's flop our design, square across our top, line up with our holes, and now let's trace this in a mirror image. And I have not hit every line. Well, again, doesn't matter. It's a leaf. It's supposed to be imperfect. Well, that looks good. We can see it. So let's step over to our main table. We're going to mark for our borders and start some tooling. For our borders, we could always mark and cut our pattern, but really we're just drawing 2 parallel lines. So let's go with a wing divider. Now we need to be careful. Let's don't drop anything on our leather. That will ding it immediately. In fact, I've got a little bit of a range mark right there. So with this, let's set our compass or our wing divider at 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to start right at the end of my round corner. There we go. Okay, moving down. Now on this end, I'm going to stop at the end of my round corner. Okay, now our line is 1/2 of an inch in. So let's come in 1/2 of an inch and then 1/4 of an inch. So 3/4. Let's start right at the top of our bend and let's run a second line parallel down. Good. So that actually meets. Very nice. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, if your corners aren't perfect, well, mine aren't either. That's okay. We're going to hit that with a swivel knife. It'll look fine. So let's take our straight edge. Get this in the shot a little bit better. There we go. Now I'm going to take this. I'm going to drop it right in on my inside line. And let's use our swivel. We're just going to make 2 passes. Now, it typically start here, but it's a little tough for the camera to see. So I'm going to start down here, and let's just make 2 light passes. And now let's do one pass that's a little bit heavier. Yay, that looks good. Okay, little debris. Now let's move over to our outside line. Now on this, let's start and stop just a little inside of our corner. That's our stop. We can visibly see that. But let's stop just a little bit short, and what we'll do is complete that line when we make our curve. That looks nice. So we have 4 clean swivel lines. We're drying out. I'm going to case again. Let's tool our leaves. Let's finish our corners first, because all we have to do here, let's take our swivel. Now we're going to move this around a lot. That's okay, but we're going to work this to where we move it as little as possible. So what I'm going to do is take my swivel, I'm going to continue my straight line, and let's just circle that around, nice and easy. And let's clip that corner, make that clean. Well, very good. Okay, let's do the same thing on the other 4 corners. That looks good. Okay, let's cut our corners, make those nice and clean and square. There we go. So, we're going to be moving this around a lot, but what we want to do is move as little as possible because of wear and tear. So down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut whatever lines I can get to first. Then we'll move this around and do the same thing. So I've got most of my lateral lines, if we want to call it that, because to me, cutting across is difficult. So let's make it easy on ourselves. Now, when we jump down to the veins on the leaves, what we want to do is let these kind of taper off or fade out as we get to our edge. So let's just start there nice and easy, and let's add a little more pressure as we come down. So there we go. We've got most of our lateral, if we want to call it that, lines. Now let's just turn this left. Now let's hit as many lines as we can from this side. That looks good thus far. Now, again, we're going to miss some lines, but let's turn this around. But what we can do is I've got a couple of pieces of 2x4. Again, because this is a larger piece. So I can put these out to the right side. We'd see that better if we didn't have such a close-up, but you get the idea. So again, I'm gonna work what I can from this side. Now it's impossible to hit every one of these lines. We're gonna miss something. But the point here is we're just not moving this around a lot. So now let's just do some cleanup. It is so easy to miss something, but I think I've got everything. Okay, we're drying out. So we need to wet our leather, case our leather again. So I'm gonna case, then we'll jump over to our bevel. I shudder to think that some of the top-notch toolers watch my videos, because that's a group I am not a member of. But the point there is this. We can keep it simple, do a great job, and it's going to be gorgeous. Let's start right here. We're going to start with our borders. Let's get these knocked out. So I'm going to take a textured bevel. We're going to move this around a lot now, but we'll do our best to keep from getting any major dings. So I'm going to take my textured bevel, and let's come in right next to that swivel. Okay, we've got that. Let's come back in and maybe just a little bit more. Try to remove some of those tool marks. Well, that looks good. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit tedious, but the outcome, well worth it. So I'm going to work my way all the way down and then back the other side. Then we'll drop in our backgrounder. Okay, well that looks good. Now let's jump over to our backgrounder. This is a pebble grain. Great thing here, we've got 3 sizes. So that's going to make this a lot easier. But also, on our 2 rounded, we've got a flat edge there. So let's start right here. I'm going to work my way around. Now I'm going to start just outside my corner. We'll come back in with our pear shape, but let's start right here and drop in our background. And that looks good. So just about maybe 7 or 8 minutes on both sides. We're going to drop in our corner here. So with this, when we go to our pear-shaped, this is a lot less metal on the head. So we need to hit this a little bit softer. But let's work that down into our corner. Well, that looks good. Very nice. We'll take a spoon to that once we're done. But overall, that border looks pretty good. So I'm going to flip this around, do the same thing on the other border. Very nice. Now, what I meant to say was about 7 minutes to bevel, 7 minutes to background, so 15 or 20 minutes each border. That's not bad. Now we're going to jump over to our leaves. All we're going to do here, and then we're done, is to bevel around the outside of our leaves. Now we're going to start moving this around a lot. But let's start right here. How about right here on this line, and we're just going to work our way all the way around the first leaf and then the second leaf. And just remove some of the tool marks. Well, that looks good. The leaves are great. Now, I keep saying this is easy tooling. Yes, you can take tooling as far as you want to, and if you want to aspire to the greats, absolutely go for it. There's even a tool called a lifter that will bring the edge of this leaf up, make it look like it's sitting on top of the leather. But my point here is that we don't have to be a pro to do pretty work, to enjoy it and love the way it looks. That's the point. Secondly, we can always make a little weight bag. We've got a big piece here, and it's going to want to move around on us, or it's going to want to lift up. Let's just drop that on it. Simply some suede with some pennies in it. That's all it is. All right, so I'm going to jump over to the other leaf, and we're all but done tooling. That looks good. Now, if we're heavy on tool marks, that happens, but what we can do is kind of have maybe a jackhammer effect, lightly, but let's run that across. Good, that's going to help out a little bit there. As you progress, you'll have less tool marks. Now, with our spoon, we're simply going to soften the edges. So I'm going to lightly run this across all of my swivel cuts. There we go, that looks good. Like I said, that's just going to soften the edges. Now, we could go much more detailed here, but let's leave it at this. And we've softened the edges. One thing I like to do is let's take our hand. Our leather's still a little bit wet, but with our finger, let's just run this outside of the tool marks, just at the end of the bevel. All that's going to do is smooth out and make it more of an easy transition from our bevel to our top grain. All told, simple, but those look good. Very happy with those. Now we're going to let this dry overnight. We need a good 24 hours dry time on this. While we do that, let's step over and work on the rest of the project. Let's start right here. For our strap, we were going to go 6 inches, but let's go 8, 3/4 inch wide. Let's pull this out of a piece of scrap and cut to length. That's ready to go. Let's jump over to our trunk handles. Now we're going to use a 7mm nylon cord, just your standard cord, and we can find this at any hardware store. Now for that, for the 7mm, we need to go 1 1/4 inch width. That's going to be a snug fit. On the weight here, I'm going to come from a double or a single shoulder. This is going to be about a 6 to 7 ounce. I want a little body here, but not too much. And let's cut these to size. Now on these, we're going to add a groove line, but we're not yet going to bevel these. We'll bevel these once they're sewn. So let's add our groove to both sides, both straps. We've got those grooved. Let's jump over to our strap. And on this we want a bevel. Let's go with a number 2. Both sides, front and back. And that's ready. Now let's jump back over to our straps because we need to mark these at 3 inches in. And we can just drop a small mark with our awl, both sides. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and mark for our rivet holes. And same on our strap. Good. Let's step over to our punch table. We're going to drop in our round punches and our chisel holes. Let's start with our strap, 3/4 of an inch. Now you notice we're a little bit further in here than we are here. That will be our rivet, that will be our sand brown, so we have a little tab there. So let's do 3/4 of an inch, both ends. Now for our holes on this, again, on the shorter end, we're going to go with a rivet. So let's go up to our 2nd or our 3rd tube on our revolving punch. On the other end, we're going to use a sand brown. There we go. Now the cap is about 5/16, but what we want to see here is the throat. That's about maybe 3/16. So let's go up to our largest hole on our revolving punch. We're going to drop this in. Now let's add a slit, and we want our slit away from the stress. So if we're pulling it this way, we want our strap on this side, so the throat seats on the rounded part and not the cut. So let's make a cut a little more than 3/8 of an inch. Let's make it easy to clip that on. There we go. So let's see how that works. Just right. That's going to sit in there perfectly. Okay, let's jump over to our straps. 1 1/4 inch round end each end. On these, our rivet holes, let's again go back to about our 2nd tube up. That's going to give us a smaller hole so that rivet's good and snug in there. That'll be a good bite for us. So 2 rivet holes each end both straps. And our last 2 holes, I am going to reset here. We'll drop in our chisel holes on our trunk handles. Now we're a little bit more comfortable. I think the camera can pick up my 2 marks 3 inches in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to butt my chisel first time right up against that hole. Now the trick here, we need the same amount of holes and they need to be right across from each other. Well, that's not too difficult because what we're going to do, let's drop in one side, pull that out, jump over to the other side. Let's do 2 sets there. First time, last hole, and back over again. So what we can do is with our square, as we move along, we're good and even here. But as we move along, we can double check with our square, and we will, to make sure our holes are parallel. And we're about halfway down, maybe a little bit more. Let's check to see if we're parallel. Let's square to our edge. We are, absolutely. It's going to be easily done. So I'm going to continue down, stop at my 3-inch marks. And as we get to our end, let's jump over to our 4-tine. That's going to come out just right. Parallel and even. Good. I'm going to do the same thing to the other strap. There we go. Well, everything here is ready. Let's jump back over to our main cutting table, tie up a few loose ends, then we're ready to die. Well, our main body looks good. Love the tooling, love the borders. Everything looks great. So, first thing, let's go to a groover. We're 1/4 of an inch in, so let's set our groove at 1/8 of an inch, and let's groove all the way around. Looks good. Nice touch to our edges. So now we're at an 8 to 9 ounce. So let's jump up to a number 2 bevel. I'm going to bevel all the sides on the front, same on the back. Okay, last step on this, let's slick our edges. And a good point here, if our corners aren't perfect, this is going to help. So let's lay this on the edge of our table so we don't have water running across the face. And let's wet our edges. Very good. Let's jump over to our slick. About our bottom groove here, it's going to be just right for an 8 to 9. Now again, pressure, not the point, more heat and friction. Okay, I can never seem to get a good camera shot of that slicked edge. But notice, if you can see, it's glossy, feels good, nice and rounded. Very professional look. Let's jump over to our strap. Let's slick our edges here, same fashion. Good slick there. Now what we don't want to do is press too hard because we'll develop a little lip. We can bevel that back off very slick, but we're backing up. Last step here, let's go over to our straps. Now we can bevel these when we get these sewed. But what I'd like to do, let's go ahead and bevel up to our 3-inch marks, and from our 3-inch marks, we're going to use the number 1 since this is about a 6 to 7. Well, that looks very good. I'm going to put some rivet holes in our main body, then I'm going to set us up to get this dyed. When we dye, we can certainly use one of our dressing sponges and that will work. It's going to be a little bit messy, but also we may very well have some streaking. We're going to dip dye this. Much larger project, so therefore we need a much larger bin. Let's get a rag ready to go so we can wipe off excess dye. Now I've got plastic trash bag down, then a piece of paper. Just some simple packing or maybe wrapping paper just to absorb some of that extra dye. Now I've got a hook here. We can make this out of coat hanger or baling wire, and let's just run this through our dye easily. So let some of that excess dye drip off. And now let's bring that over. Notice I've got my rag here to wipe off some excess dye, but that's just about gone. Okay, so dyeing this on a video always makes me nervous, right? So I've done that first. Now what we'll do, we'll talk about this. We're going to go with a walnut. It's a beautiful medium brown, but with the dip dyeing, no mess, no fuss, super easy. And you'll see this is going to come out incredibly consistent. Now we need to give this maybe, I would say about 4 or 5 hours dry time. Let's let it dry. In that time, I'm going to jump over, dye these straps, and we will let that dry. Plenty of dry time. Now it's a little bit flat. We're going to take care of that with our top coat. But before we add our top coat, let's step over to our pattern table and sew our trunk handles. We're going to do a basic saddler stitch. So therefore, needle on both ends. We're going to use our number 18 John James needle. Love this needle. Strong but small. Ritza, we're going to use our 0.8 millimeter Ritza thread. It's good strong thread. We won't really see this, but let's go with a matching brown. On my thread length, I need 4 times my length. Now, it's a little frustrating to get this started, but once we get a couple of stitches in, it's a breeze. We'll mow right through this. So again, looks like a tedious step. Let's do this. Let's actually time this. So on our saddler stitch, let's find our hole. There we are. 1 needle through our first 2 holes. Let's equalize these out. And there we are. Now, once I get rolling, we can use both needles at one time. But let's get us started. There we go. Pull this through. Now I'm going to pull that back towards me. So therefore, that's going to open that hole up. I'm not worried about splitting my thread. Good. Let's tighten that down. Now, if we don't get that completely tight just yet, that's okay, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to give tension up here, but it's actually going to tighten back here. So let's roll. I've already been talking too much now. So let's see if we can get our 2 needles through. There we go. So this is going to get a good bit easier and faster. Now, when we get down to one last hole, let's do this. Let's come through with our needles. There we go. And let's, before we tighten that completely down, let's come back 1 hole and just slide through 1 ply. There we go. Now let's crank this down. Good and tight. In fact, let's do this 1 thread at a time. That gets that good and tight. Okay, so with that, let's take this, tie our basic square knot. Let's pull that tight. Now all we have to do is clip that off. Easy as that. Our knot is hidden, but that looks good, doesn't it? We've got a good trunk handle. All right, gonna do the same thing for the other strap. Let's pull both tight down, clip that off, and let's stop there. So about 20 minutes. That's not bad for both of these. I went a little bit faster once I stopped talking. But all told, look at our meat. That looks great. It's a good looking handle. Now, 20 minutes for a machine, that's not great. But hand sewn, not bad at all. So let's jump back over to our main table. We're gonna step off the beaten path here. We're gonna go with a saddle lac as a top coat. It's my favorite, but a lot of folks have trouble with it. So let's see if we can help there. First off, our bottle cannot be cold. It's got to be room temperature or a little above. Secondly, since it's a lacquer base, we're going to go as light as possible. It's not going to change our color. It's going to dry in about 2 minutes. Those are two of the reasons I love it. So let's do this. We're going to keep a rag in our left hand, and I'm just going to make one pass down, one pass back, shooting to cover an area about maybe 1.5 inches wide. I've got my rag because every time I come back, I'm going to clean off the nozzle. If it spits, and it may, just daub that spot. It'll go away. We'll never see it again. Also, absolutely, we need good ventilation with this. Got a cross breeze in my shop. There we go. All right, let's walk away. No kidding. This is going to dry in about 2 minutes. Good dry time. In fact, 2 or 3 minutes at most. That's already dry. But look at that beautiful gloss. Hasn't changed our color. So let's jump over. Let's knock out our strap and our trunk handles. And that is all we need. Let's let those dry. Then we're going to drop in our spots because we are close to done. We will never see an awl mark here. So let's do this. We're going to cover this with a spot. So let's start right in the middle, 24 inches. Let's start at 12, and let's just drop a black mark in from our Sharpie. And I'm going to go 2-inch increments in both directions. Okay, same on the other side. Good. Let's go back to our pattern table, drop in some spots. And we're back to the dark leather again. No matter how much light I pump into this, it's not going to help. But with this, we're going to drop our spot in. We've got some good videos on adding spots by hand. But we've got a problem. We're going to go into a background. So we can straddle that mark and press our spot in, but we're never going to see that. So what I tend to do, and again, the camera shot's not going to help, is I will take and hold my spot with my left hand. Now I know exactly where my tine holes need to be. So I'm going to press my knife in. There we go. Now I can see that. So let's take our spot, press that in. Very nice. That looks good, nice and centered. So let's take this on our little cardboard mallet. Now I'm not going to go into a lot of explanation here. We're running a little short on time. But let's flip this over. I'm going to bend the tines inward. Then let's drop this over on our quartz and just give that a light tap. So now what we've got, I just can barely feel those tines. They've actually circled in. So let's repeat that same process for all of our spots on both borders. Very nice. Well, that's a good looking border. I love that design. All right, let's step over to our punch table, knock this together. Our last step, very nice. Let's start up front. And let's start with our Sam Browne, or button stud. Now this is a screw back, so all I have to do is drop this in, screw this down with hand pressure, but what I'd like to do, let's add a little bit of glue to this, just to keep that from working out over time, and screw that down. Good. Okay, let's jump over to a medium double cap, or the 5/16 inch, and this is in the antique nickel. Let's go to this side first. Let's drop in one end, Look at that, very nice. We took our time with our pattern, that's paying off. So drop our caps on. That's going to last for years. Same on the other side. Okay, we'll flip this around. Now on our center hole, we're going to drop in our straps. So the same medium double cap. And same for our trunk handles. Well, that looks fantastic. How about that? What a nice project. Now our sand brown. This is going to be a little tough to get on there to begin with. But with a little wear and tear, that's going to snap right on. But is that not a beautiful project? Love the trunk handles. That is going to last for years. One question has been bothering me through this entire video. Should we keep it simple, offer up some options, or should we go all out? You know what? I'm still not sure. I'll leave it up to you because you know what? That is really a beautiful project. I hope every wood carrier you make is spot on beautiful, durable, and I hope you have a great time with it. Good luck with your projects.